Have it. Make every burst count. Up, Space Fleet!
The Star Wars of 30 years ago were fought in the Dan Dare comic strip. From this small studio in Epsom came the stories that thrilled 750,000 young readers every week. There was concern in the country at the importation of American horror comics, and Dan was the antidote. An upright adventurer depicted in unprecedented full colour with his characterful friends and unforgettable enemies. They were big news.
While the possibilities of space travel beyond the moon remain a subject of scientific controversy, writers and artists give free rein to their imagination with stories that nevertheless bear the stamp of authenticity. And here are some of the ways that artist Frank Hampson captures the realistic atmosphere in his famous Dan Dare strip. In case you don't recognize this space monster, it's a Treen from the planet Venus, alias 8-year-old Peter Hampson. Just one of the artist's family who help out. Another is his father, better known to Dan Dare fans as Sir Hubert Guest, controller of the Interplanet Space Fleet. Artist Hampson has to pay great attention to detail, and his models and reference library of scientific information are invaluable to him. For his readers are critical, and the slightest error in rank and insignia are pounced upon by thousands of young space fiction experts.
Frank would prepare a very detailed visual, or rough, which some people would say was good enough to actually be printed as it was, but he wouldn't have agreed with that. And then we would go away and photographs would be taken in as near to the positions that Frank had drawn as possible, or sometimes it didn't seem anatomically possible to get into these positions, and especially to hold them for long periods of time if it was a fight scene. And then these photographs were then used, basing it on Frank's rough drawing, taking the best out of that, but then using the photographs to get the details of light and shadow on faces and on folds. A result, a feeling of realism, and a convincing result was obtained, which you couldn't get just drawing from your head.
Well, I was Professor Peabody. I was the model for Professor Peabody. A lot of it, of course, was pure imagination, but a lot of it was taken from ordinary odds and ends. He would say, oh, go to Woolworths and see what you can find, and we'd come back with interesting shapes. I mean, like a soup ladle, from which he would take his shine on a dome. That was a sort of brand new soup ladle, and he would study it and draw until he got absolutely the shine of metal, whatever he wanted, on the dome.
He went to the best reference sources he could find for the latest design projects in aeronautics, astronautics, engineering, architecture, fashion, furniture, and so that when you looked at Dan Dare, you weren't simply looking into Frank's mind, you were looking through his eyes at the best available designs that were going then, and he took these and he adapted them, and with his own special genius breathed on them and pushed them forward, and created with them a world of the near future that was really solid. It didn't look like a drawing, it looked as if he'd got into a time machine and been there and sketched it and brought it back with him.
The Mekon, cold, merciless mastermind of Venus and sworn foe of mankind.
Hampson's world was as scrupulous in its morality as it was in its realism. The story had begun under the name Lex Christian, and Christian values survived in the ideal of a world ruled by a harmonious United Nations.
But the food of North Venus is yours by right. We are not conquerors, nor do we loot.
You mean you are not going to enslave us or take our land?
And breed another war? No, my friend. We of the Earth have learned our peacemaking in a hard, bitter school. Now we have a one-word policy for both victor and vanquished. Disarmament.
Gentlemen, you shall have every morsel of food we can squeeze out of our soil. By the great magnets of Mikanta, I believe I'm having an emotion.
World leaders were black in this de-humbugged future, and newsreaders were female.
Gosh, jumping jets.
Suffering cats.
A woman.
Professor Peabody. I fell in love with Professor Peabody as a boy, as a reader, you see. And, yes, and Sir Hubert. But you see, they were all real people. And this came over in the strip. I think the reader really believed they were real. They couldn't have been drawn just from an artist's head. Practically every pore in Sir Hubert's skin was portrayed in a really big close-up. It was obviously somebody who lived and breathed.
We still have a choice, Miss Peabody.
I'd prefer to wait a little longer. While there's life, there's hope.
You're a very brave woman, Miss Peabody.
Sir Hubert!
I mean it, my dear. May have been a bit harsh in the past. Never expected a female to behave so well. Cool. Good show. You see what I mean.
Frank Hampson's world fell to pieces in 1961. The committee men of the publishing world moved in. There was a takeover, and Hampson was suddenly aware that the copyright was no longer his. While others made $1 million out of Dan and Friends, Hampson was left with nothing.
Pirates all round the clock, and more coming up from Mikanta. This looks like the end, Dan, old comrade. But thank goodness you'll never know it.
Oh, well, yeah, I was very upset about the whole series of events that led to parting from it. Well, I tried to commit suicide. I had a nervous breakdown. Had a dreadful year afterwards trying to start to learn to draw again. But I got over it all right with the help of my wife, and I'm fine now. But he was a very real person in this house for 10 years. I mean, we spoke of him familiarly as though he were one of the family, yes. And it's what we lived for, it's what we breathed for.
Dare you return to Mikanta, Colonel?
Dare's my second name, Mikon. I'm starting back now.